this is where is graffiti living right now. We speak about content today in this exhibition, and this probably the main topic is how the content change of graffiti, because the creation back in the days in the 70s or whatever, when graffiti started back in New York, people created content. The content was graffiti put on the train. The graffiti was put on the train because the train passed from one side of the city to another side of the city, and thousands of people can see it. This is the most important thing about graffiti. You want to be recognized, you want to get the fame. You have to market yourself, your name, and if you have the skills to market yourself on social media, you have success. The artists you can see in the exhibitions are people who actually understood that we can reach wider audience using the social media and the internet instead of the real life. Maybe in real life graffiti can exist for a couple of days, maybe a couple of hours, but in this new reality right now, the content can be forever.
The feeling that graffiti was kidnapped by itself, by the unwritten rules of graffiti. I don't understand if a subculture is so free that all these rules kind of apply on the artist. And for me, the artists in the show, they are artists, graffiti artists who think differently, who think differently on expressing themselves and kind of breaking the rules. The hashtag is very important because the hashtag Viral Vandals, it's like the key to the exhibition, because the exhibition is not only between the walls of Mu, but it can also exist online, or maybe even exist further on. Everybody can feel the hashtag in any social media and can be part of this kind of energy. And I hope that during the exhibition this will also happen, that people kind of like just react on it, and it can grow and can grow and can grow, and it can inspire other writers also to think differently. Step out of the box of graffiti, which graffiti is in, and try to mix it with multimedia, maybe other ways of expressing yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome here in the StudentHotel. And for the people, nice, the cameraman with his phone on, that's cool. Also people on the stream, welcome virtually in the StudentHotel. Nice that you're watching. If you're watching, then it's nice. And on behalf of both eMoves, the Urban Culture Festival here in Eindhoven, and Mu, the art space that's on Stripe where the exhibition is, I welcome you all here at the talk show where we're going to be talking about graffiti from like 40 years ago in New York till now, and also about the future of graffiti, but also street art, also urban interventions. And we do this with like all different people from all over the world, because there's a Frenchman who is coming from Prague. There is this, you're not the Frenchman coming from Prague. There's the Bulgarian guy with an existential crisis, and he was doing 2 days to get here from Hamburg. God knows how he did that. And also there's opportunity for you, of course, to ask questions. And Mickey is here, Mickey Larocque, haha, welcome, all the way from Friesland, which is also really far away. And but before we're going to be discussing all these topics, I'd like to call forward somebody that's going to do a small talk on like the bigger picture, so to say. And he is actually exploring contemporary art as a writer, as a photographer, as a curator, as an arts administrator, as a critic, as a fan, as a human being probably also. And his work focuses on graffiti and street art and public art and net art. And he's editor-in-chief of the art blog Vanderlog. And he's also the co-curator of Art in Ad Places. He wrote 2 books on street art, really cool actually, on street art and graffiti. He's still studying, but doing a great job. Haha. And he's going to tell us something more, and it's RJ Rushmore. Yay!
Hi.
And because he's from America, he has this TED Talk microphone.
I'll do this from down here. Here's the thingy. Okay.
Wherever you want to.
Cool. I
sit.
needed this thingy. So I'm going to stand so I can look behind me sometimes. I want to talk about this thing I call viral art, just as a brief introduction. First of all, thank you to Moo and Jasper and everybody for having me. It's a quick trip from New York, but totally worth it. It's been really fun to be here the last about 24 hours. So basically, just to start things off, a quick, my perspective, I guess, on as you're saying, the wider picture of where we are historically with communication technologies and graffiti and street art, and how communication technologies have influenced these cultures that we all love so much. This way. Right?
Okay, that work?
You can do it. Well, can you click?
Yeah.
Okay. Click. I'll just say click. I sound like an asshole, but I'll just say click. Yeah, you'll be my clicker. That's terrible. This is obviously this is some early graffiti from New York on the subway trains, and this is where the point where innovation in graffiti is so small that the difference between writing there's 2 star pieces, 2 star 3 pieces on this train you can see. One is just a little tiny tag, and then somebody figured out stars wait, but if I use 2 colors and I go big, more people will see me, right? Graffiti is about fame, so you make your name bigger. Well, I'll stand out more, and that's early innovation in graffiti. And if you want to go to the next one, graffiti is a sport, right? And it's about fame, and I was talking with Boris this morning, and he used the same phrase. He said graffiti is a sport. And while, yes, there's art involved, at its core, I think it's a competition, it's a sport, and I'm sure Boris will talk more about that later. You want to win, right? So if we go to the next slide. This is a quote from one of my favorite people, Eben Roth, amazing artist and thinker on just the internet and about graffiti as well. And at the end of the day, why were you writing on subway trains, right? You were writing on subway trains because they move through the city. And you weren't, if you write on your block, everybody on your block sees it. But if I don't go to your block, I'm not going to see your name. But everybody in New York rides the subway, and a train moves everywhere, right? So if I write my name, or you write your name on the subway, I'm going to have to see it, because eventually I'm going to see a subway train, right? Because they move everywhere. And so the reason to write on the train wasn't because, it's cool to break in and whatever, and maybe there was this cool adrenaline rush, but it was because it moved, right? And I think that's really essential, that writers figured out, this thing moves, and that's why we're going to write on it. And we're going to use spray paint because that makes more sense than using bucket paint, right, on the side of a train. You want to go to the next slide? So if you look at this picture again, and you think about what they've done here is, first of all, as I said, Star has figured out, I need to write bigger because I'm writing on the outside of a train. But everyone here has figured out writing on the outside of a train is better than writing on the corner of my street, right? Unless I walk every street in the city, this is much more effective. Spray can is a hack. It wasn't meant to be used to write graffiti. Subway is a hack. Basically, so many innovations in graffiti were people figuring out how to use either tools or surfaces for things they weren't intended to, right? So if you start thinking about graffiti as a series of hacks to get famous, that's sort of where I'm coming from. Next one. So this is modern New York City. So again, if we think of graffiti as a hack in this modern sense, you have Katsu and Reed who have used fire extinguishers. And so even though the buff man has come along and tried to remove their work, he's only gotten half of it, right? And I can still read that. And, if you can probably still read Reed. And if you know Katsu, you'll certainly figure out, that's Katsu, okay. Maybe it's a little harder to read, than originally. But everything below that is going to get destroyed. It's going to get painted over. So somebody figured out, well, shit, if I put paint in a fire extinguisher, it'll go really high and I'll beat the buff man, right? So that's another hack, is this more modern tool of the extinguisher that certainly there's no fire extinguisher manufacturer, other than maybe Krink, who I guess sells paint fire extinguishers for thousands of dollars, and I love KR, but clearly that's not to be used as clearly as an art object. No fire extinguisher manufacturer is thinking, great, I'm gonna get graffiti writers to buy my shit, and they're gonna fill it with paint and vandalize my building where I make fire extinguishers, right? But that's what's happening. So it's another more contemporary hack. Next slide. So the internet, right? If we think about, so shifting gears a little bit, the internet exists. It's very straightforward, right? The internet exists. People look at photos on the internet. Whether now it's, I should have updated this slide. It's not so much the forums and the blogs anymore, and Flickr is pretty dead, but it's Instagram and it's Facebook, right? But if people are sharing photos there, then, and they're sharing like, oh, this beautiful heart, right? Then why not use that? You want to go to the next slide? And so at the same time that the internet is coming along and that street art and graffiti are taking to the internet and people are sharing these photos and people are realizing, wow, it's really fun to share photos of that Shock 1 mural or whatever, street art kind of becomes normalized, right? It's no longer this rebellious thing. That's the Bowery and Houston wall. That's Swoon in collaboration with Groundswell, a community mural project in New York. And don't get me wrong, I love that mural and I love Swoon's work and everything Groundswell does, but it's not disruptive in the same way that it once was, right? It's not like she broke the law to do that. It's not like there was any sort of adrenaline rush going on, and it's not like she was, she was invited to do this. And so I know if I work around the corner from this place now, I know that if I walk around the corner, there's going to be a big ass mural, whether it's Swoon or somebody else or Fail or whoever else. And so it's not surprising anymore. So what do you do when, in part because of the internet, because we share these pictures and because it's really fun to share these pictures and property owners realize that, street art becomes normalized? Next slide. We'll get to that. But first, I love this quote from Tat's crew. This is, I think, the way to think about the internet now. And again, Boris, I think this is something you've said variations on this. I think this morning you had a variation on this when we were talking. The idea that the subway track, was great, and that was a good hack. But now the internet, there's so much more space on the internet, and we see things globally, and there's just more of it. So if we hack the subways, if writers hack the subways to move their messages, they have to hack the internet and use the internet to spread their messages, right? You'd be stupid not to, basically. Next slide. So then you get shit like this, and I say that I liked this piece by Oleg, where clearly this piece lasted an hour. What? This piece lasted an hour. So there was very few people saw this in person, right? But immediately it was written up on Gothamist. It was written up in, probably on ArtNet, and it was shared on social media, and the artist Oleg shares it on her social media, and I probably wrote about it on my blog, and now it's seen by hundreds of thousands of people who never saw it in person, and even if she'd done a piece that would have lasted much longer, it's seen by more people. So she did this knowing it would only last an hour, got good documentation, shared it on the internet, used the internet as a new track. It's like if she just did this and didn't take a photo, it'd be the equivalent of like writing something, on your neighborhood corner rather than writing on the subway, right? So she was smart and used this new track. Next one. This is another example of street art for the internet by a guy called Sever. If you're a real graffiti nerd like me, you'll identify all of these heads and be like, oh, there's Shepard Fairey, that's us Gemios, there's Barry McGee, Banksy, Futura, Cause, all these famous artists carrying this coffin. Now, you can just show of hands, I think very few people will recognize all 6 of those faces. How many people here recognized all 6 of those faces right off the bat? Like, okay, maybe a third of the room. So, if that, and so, why would Sever paint this? That was stupid. To paint this in Detroit, where people are going to walk by who don't give a shit about graffiti, right? So why would you paint this? The only reason is to take the photo and share it on the internet, and that got shared on Complex, and it got shared on Mass Appeal, and it got shared, and people flipped a shit when this was posted because it was like, oh, shots fired, Sever doesn't like Shepard Fairey or whatever, and it was all about the communication on the internet, right? And it's a great piece, but you kind of have to ask the question, did it even matter that he painted it? He could have just posted a sketch, right? Next slide. So I love this quote from Kyle. Again, as I've sort of said, you need to be not stupid, you should be using the internet, right? As a graffiti writer. If you have the mentality of a graffiti writer, to be not stupid, you have to use the internet. Next one. So if people are finding their street art online and graffiti online and walking around looking at their phones instead of what's around them, because we all look at our phones, right? And we're walking down the street. I probably look at my phone more than I look at what I'm walking at. I walk into telephone poles all day long, right? So if that's the case, then next slide. Why even paint on the street? This is a digital work by a famous street artist who's been active since the 70s, John Fechner, and his whole point is, of course, now he's like, I don't really do that much work on the street, but I make digital work all damn day. He was like an early new media artist in the 90s. He started a new media program at a university, but people think of him as a street artist. But actually, he's just a guy who connects with people however it's easiest to connect with them. And he realized at a certain point, well, the internet's the easier way to do that because I live in whatever, suburban New York, and I don't know how to get to the rest of, the world. And the way to do it is through the internet. Next slide. And that's what I call organic viral art. So it's work that is sort of made to be on the internet, right? And I think we'll see a lot more examples of that later, and I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to say about it. And next slide. But, it's no longer surprising, right? Because if I follow somebody on Instagram, if I follow Mathieu on Instagram and you post a photo of your work, or I follow Sever on Instagram, I'm not surprised when his work shows up in my feed, right? It's not like I've turned the corner and gone, oh shit, it's a new piece by Sever, oh my God. So you haven't quite reached that surprise thing that is lost, even though it's really important to use the internet. So how can we get back the surprise thing? Next. But wait, there's more. Next. If graffiti is a series of hacks and writers want to reach the public, then why not hack the internet, right? And this is where people start looking at me like I'm crazy. And that's fine. I mean, you guys can look at me like I'm crazy. But why not hack the internet and graffiti the internet in that way? Next slide. So this is what I call invasive viral art. This is Saber on Twitter when the GOP shut down the Republican Party in the States shut down the government a few years ago. What was this, 2013? Yeah, 2013. And he would do this upside down flag, and then he'd use like the Fox News hashtag, and he has a lot of followers, and how many retweets he's got here? 15 retweets at that time would have put him as like a top tweet. So when you went to the Fox News hashtag, you'd see his upside down flag. And Fox News wants to control their hashtag, right? Like if that's their kind of space, even though it's public space and there's conversation, Fox News wants positive conversation, not upside down flags, screw you Republican Party, right? So he was able to invade that hashtag with his ASCII art. So to me, he's basically thinking like, he's a graffiti writer, he's thinking like a graffiti writer and using the internet to do his graffiti. Next. So digital street art or digital graffiti. Next. This is just another quick example. All these people on Sarah Palin's Facebook page, they posted on her wall. You can no longer quite do this because the design, obviously, of Facebook has changed over the years. But back when she was running for vice president, they all posted and said, like, you're so awesome, blah, blah, blah. You know what's cool, Sarah Palin. But then they change all their profile pictures. They all posted it once, a group of 12 people or whatever. And then they change their profile pictures. So if you're the guy reading the Sarah Palin Facebook post to delete all the negative ones, you're like, yeah, love Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin's awesome. Great. Keep those. And then you realize, oh shit, they've written Keep Fear Alive, which was this sort of anti-Palin slogan at the time. And they've written it down the side of her page, bigger than any of these other messages. So it's this kind of graffiti, right? Next. Oh, and this is a fun one. So what is Evan Roth? I showed you that Evan Roth quote earlier. And now at this point, do you want to Google it? Yeah, sure. So if you could Google, Jasper, for me, badass motherfucker. Oh, and they're like, yeah, you have to click enter for that one. Now, if we scroll to the second result, Evan Roth is a badass motherfucker. And for years, he was actually the top result. And this is just his artist website, and it's whatever. And so his business card for years was just badass motherfucker. Google badass motherfucker, and you'll find my website. And he did that by basically tricking Google into thinking that his should be the top result. And then once the press started writing about the fact that he had succeeded in tricking Google, it actually became like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because then, like when I would write on my blog, Evan Roth made badass motherfucker, the top Google result is his website, that would reinforce it legitimately for Google to make it the top result. Maybe not so much when I did it, but when other larger sites did. And he even one time asked me, I had posted a photo of his work, and he said, can you put in the metadata, badass motherfucker? Because it will help, again, with my search results. It's like, yeah, why not? So I thought that was very clever. We can switch back to the presentation. But that's another example of just invading Google. It's called the Google bomb. And basically hacking that platform to put your name out there. I mean, Evan Roth, website. This is graffiti, right? Why does viral art matter? Next slide. You know, when in real life is also your phone, because let's face it, like real life is our phones now, right? And our screens and our whatever. Then, you know, and street art's not surprising anymore. What are we going to do? You know, we got to keep the spirit of street art and graffiti alive, and one way to do that, if you go to the next slide, is to do this invasive viral art. So I think this is the one example of something that somebody has said to me, I want to do as sort of a famous graffiti writer. So if you want to click one more time, we should see what happens. Katsu. Wouldn't it be amazing if for a half a second, Katsu, big graffiti writer in New York, if his name, he took over the Google homepage, if he hacked the homepage and made everyone, even for half a second, see his name. That'd be more people than ever saw any of his tags in person, right? And he's like, I'd love to do that. Who knows if he's really trying very hard to do it, but wouldn't be shocked if he is, you know? If he figured out a way to do it, I'm sure he would. And so that's one example of maybe what our future could look like as we're trying to keep the aspects of both fame and of hacking tools and of surprise alive in street art and graffiti. So that's my weird take on things. And now hopefully we can get talking and show more examples with all you guys, yeah? Cool. Thank you.
Yes, Oh, they're gonna sit anyway. Yeah. Sit. It's all right. Well, first of all, maybe I'll introduce Jasper van Es because that's the guy on the other side, and he's the co-curator of the exhibition in MU. And now he's also doing the production, and now he's doing the visuals. He's like a sidekick. He's smiling all the time. It's also really good for the atmosphere, and. And the producer of a book that I'll tell you later about, that's actually over there. So that's Jasper. And then this here is good guy Boris. And Boris, you're also co-curator of the exhibit. And there was one day when you were born in...
Hi, Christian.
Huh? That was really freaking. So to hear yourself like in your head, I would have voices in my head, and then another one in the audience. Whoa. Anyways, Boris, yes, there was like one day that you were born in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And
I
then
born and grown in Bulgaria, and then I lived 6 years in Paris, so now I'm a Parisian.
you feel like a Parisian now.
Yeah.
Okay. And Boris, well, you do a lot of things. You're also kind of a journalist and the creator of the Grift. You actually wear the shirt, also the Grifters.
It's make a little advertising.
Yeah.
For myself.
Yeah, because it's like a blog with like a journalism. It started like a journalism photo blog, and then it went more to the graffiti lifestyle, then maybe more urban. Can you say something about it?
Yeah, and then it turned into a brand and book publishing company.
Yeah.
So now I'm publishing books and also documenting graffiti, culture and lifestyle.
Do you want to say something about the past, you as a teenager, and how it all happened, or you just want to go to where you are now and...
No.
I just wanted to check with you on the moment.
I don't want to go to the story of how this started because I think probably most of the people know it, or if they don't know it, it's not the matter of the topic.
Well, maybe
now.
it's nice to show something of you, because you know you also film a graffiti artist, and you filmed a lot of graffiti artists, and now you found a new way or a funny way to actually.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, then we have to start with the story. How I started with the graffiti. So then I started with graffiti by painting graffiti as everybody else who started to write graffiti. And at early age, you take paint and you go to paint with your friend. This is a typical and classical story for everybody, and everybody with little differences start like this. Then my story goes more into the documentation of the graffiti movement and the graffiti culture, because I started to be more interested in the universe of graffiti, the atmosphere of graffiti, and the emotion, you can say, all the spirit that graffiti created between me, my friends, the people who traveled, and everything. And I thought I had a vision that people don't see this, they don't know about it, and I wanted to show this, I wanted to document it, I wanted to preserve it, and I say, okay, for me it's more interesting to focus on that instead of focusing on the writing itself. And shortly with the time, I think this was half writing graffiti, half and half documenting graffiti. And at one point, I saw that graffiti, actually, I had to let down more the writing and to invest more in the documenting, so the humanity, the people, can actually discover more from this culture and to see what is actually happening behind the curtain of this movement. So people can actually appreciate graffiti, because at the end of the day, you have the finished product that everybody see on the street. Some people care about, some people appreciate, some people really don't even care, don't even see it. Maybe they take it as advertising, but if people knew what is happening behind the tags, behind the bombings, behind the trains, if they knew the effort, if they knew what energy is spent behind the things that I saw, I think people will really open the mind, and they will think differently about graffiti. Like, it's just a knowledge.
Like the process.
Yeah, the process of making graffiti. So this is the thing that I focused on. If this process go parallel with my personal experience with internet and social media, because first I started analog photography, then this switched to digital photography, and then I discovered internet. Before, back in the days, there was no internet, I had only magazine, etc., etc. So this history of being an artist to a journalist, and today to a graffiti entertainer or something like this. I don't know how to yeah, let's say today is a pure entertainment, because graffiti is just on the background and I'm on the foreground, and this is a 100% entertainment, I guess. It's just the topic is graffiti. And this transition actually went, the transition of writer, documenter, entertainer went parallel with my experience with social media and internet. So the moment when I discovered first internet, as RJ said, first was the forums, we were people posting photos, you discover, hey, wow, it's internet for free, you can see a film, you can see a photo, you can reach, wow, it's a new world, it's global. Then you go to the photolog, then we started the social media, and when the social media started, I was shocked. For sure, first internet was really exciting for me, but when I first discovered the social media, Instagram, Facebook, this for me was like, okay, this is amazing. Now I have the control to show, to reach more people with the level of information was crazy. It's insane. It's over information. So I just start to study it, to exploit it, to use it, and to use this channel for spreading the message of my message using the social channels. And so today we are here. Jasper can show one video to see the final step, because I guess people know every typical graffiti, but
choose one?
Yeah, you just put one video where I sing. It's good so people can see. It's amazing. So this is where graffiti is today. This is where most of you probably know Snapchat. So this is the Snapchat filter, and some people are painting and having the stress of being caught, or maybe they're gonna run from the security guard, and I'm playing music behind them and having a selfie, removing my mask because it's just the face filter is not working with the mask. So everything, we risk everything for the laws. But anyway, this is for me where graffiti ends today. This is the final step. Is this
the background for your entertainment?
But this is my personal story. This is not what people should do, or we don't encourage any illegal or selfie artistic.
You don't want competition. No competition for the graffiti.
No, we spoke earlier today about the competition. I think competition is really important, and really the good competition is good for the progress. No competition, no progress. So I want more competition. I want better songs, better lyrics, better action, and everything. You know. So yeah, this is my story really told the shortest as possible. So maybe we can go with the next guys. They say
just one more because it's nice entertainment.
Nice.
It's funny when you started like a boy. Oh, I'm here. I'm doing graffiti. It's really exciting. And now you're just standing there like a queen, dancing queen. It's like a funny way of.
You also have to imagine the situation of the guys that they're actually really painting and focused, and then there is the idiot behind it. Like, they just turn around like, okay. But yeah, this is where everything ends, because at the end.
But they never slap you or.
No, nobody slap me. People respect me, and this is not possible. Yeah. Joke is a joke, but the joke has limits, So for sure not.
Well, thank you. Next, maybe you can pass the microphone to Eileen. Eileen Middel, you're an urban contemporary artist known as Mikla Rock. Yep. And you started. You started in the 80s and mid 80s, and you had with your tag Mickey. Maybe you can say something about these days when you started.
Well, it was the. Internet was not even in the minds of the people, or that was like far future. When I started, actually I was inspired by existing graffiti that had nothing to do with New York graffiti, on which later this whole scene and movement and world has been built upon. And all I had was a can of spray paint and a marker, and just a handful of examples, like maybe 2 or 3 books, 1 or 2 films, and not so many more examples than that. Yeah. So it was more or less pioneering in an analog world.
Yeah, you didn't even have a camera, so like the first pictures was actually a few years after you started, because you couldn't even make pictures of your work.
I had no camera, so I painted my first piece in the basement of my school, of the high school, and I didn't even know what type of spray paint to use. So I racked up those little blue spray paint that you can do the model trains with, and I had no idea about colors or color use. So my outlines were silver and the highlights were black. And I didn't use any fill-in or background. It was just like doing it. Yeah. And I have no photos of it. It's in my mind. It's a shame, because that would be so much fun to show. But
well, that's funny, because this is like a really old work, and then you had actually a camera, and then you made pictures of work that were already, pre-camera.
Well, this is actually a tag of mine somewhere from also like 86. Yeah. And I didn't really take pictures of my tags, because you just make a tag. It's like leaving a little mark somewhere. And I used to tag a lot. So making photos of every tag was definitely impossible, and it didn't come up in my mind. Yeah. So only in the 2000s, when I walk in Groningen, the city where where I grew up as a kid, and where my graffiti career started, sometimes I run into an old tag that survived all the decades, and I have to take a picture of it. So this one was taken about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's those little remains of what once was.
And then, well, actually, there is a lot going on in. We can continue to see slowly. Here's one bit of your black book, and then it starts getting bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. You can actually see it's like an old picture, can't you? And then around the millennium, you went more abstract.
Yeah, well, what we see here is still the mid-90s, where I'm, as you see, pretty much developed from the silver and the black from the 80s. And these were my first visits to New York. That was very important for me back in those days, because New York was some sort of the mecca for graffiti, because it's the style that we all build upon. It's from New York. So for me, going there and meeting all the people in person, once again, this was before internet, so it was, now you can meet everybody, like everybody can connect on the Instagram, and sometimes I'm so amazed that say Old Helsinki already liked all the pictures that I see online. It's crazy. But this is like really meeting people in person and totally be happy about meeting them and working with them in real life. It's a different energy, I think.
And also probably because you in Holland you were probably first female, but maybe that time also maybe the only female, and then also meeting other. Was that important to you, or you couldn't care less then?
Well, actually, I never really realized that I was a girl doing graffiti. I was just a writer.
Oh yeah.
So I'm writing, you know, and then later they say like, yeah, but you're special, you're a girl writer. Oh, okay, well, but yeah, well, of course, I knew I was I'm
You
girl.
knew you were a girl, but that's good.
There were not so many role models for me or examples. So yes, there was Lady Pink that we just saw on the picture, and yeah, she was of course a big name. She was in those books. She was in the movies, and she was actually on the canvases that hung in the Groninger Museum, where I used to go and look at the graffiti art. And there was not, I mean, I think my schoolmates, the other girls, they were all like in love with George Michael and Michael Jackson in posters above their beds, and you know, the girls, teenage girl rooms. And I had, I think I racked up a subway art book from the local library, and I made a collage of cutout photos of Pink stuff because I really admired her, because she was the only woman I could refer to that was doing graffiti the way I was living my graffiti. So when I met her at the Groninger Museum, it was just awesome. And we became friends. Of course, I don't know if she ever met other, like many girls that were into this whole thing, this graffiti, and then all around, like the bombing, tagging, piecing, the trains, the walls, everything. So we just had to hook up. I think we just had to become friends, and she really paved the way for me. She showed me so much and of her career, and opened or paved the way for me.
And then from the 90s, slowly we go a little bit through. I asked you to, show some of your work, and then slowly it went more and more abstract.
Yeah, I started.
This is like a really big piece as well. Oh my God.
Yeah, this is from about 6-7 years ago. And my style totally went abstract. I started around the millennium change. I was already like freaking with my letters and trying to research if letters still need to be readable when you do graffiti. Mm-hmm. And this is of course a thing. Yeah, we can do a wild style and make all the outsiders trouble their heads about what's readable or what does it say. But how about troubling my colleagues about what I'm doing? And what are letters doing when you don't have to read them, but you can still paint them? Yeah. And so actually the piece above here, it's not letters anymore. Maybe if you change it like a quarter, like if you rotate it quarterly wise, it actually does say Mickey. Yeah. But it's only lines, and the I can be inside the M, and the Y can be upside down. So this is my research, and I'm happy doing it. We can see another one maybe. Yeah, this is my latest. This is 2 weeks ago. It's the one on the right. Mm. The other one is from my colleague and friend Olivier Schimmel, who's also into the abstract journey, and I really feel happy doing minimalistic stuff like this. Yeah.
Doing also a lot of lectures, a curator. You were a curator for the Amsterdam Museum, where there was an exposition, Graffiti in New York meets the Dam.
Yeah, that opened a whole new path for me, because I realized when I was asked to do this that, wow, I do have a whole history in graffiti that can be told. Like, I'm not such savvy on the internet, and like these guys, I have no idea how to use the internet. And actually, I'm from a generation of writers where the internet was pretty much scary, because you open up all you do. You make it really easy to be found, even by by police or a vandal squad or. Yeah. And so it was rather like not put everything online, or rather not going online at all. And I was very hesitating to be on the photo log, and I kind of like felt it like a waterfall of information of all those photos from all those people that I know of, or people that I don't know, that it kind of like blocked me from wanting to see it. Because I really, really like holding an analog photo. I really like reading an analog paper article about graffiti. All the digital photos, some of my own digital photos, because I don't make analogs anymore. I can't even see them anymore, because my iPhoto in the computer says like, oh, this is an old iPhoto and you need to like flip it around. And I'm like, I'm not even going there. So these pieces I've lost, like my first piece in the high school. And but I understand that like 2 weeks ago there was an opening, and this guy from France, Pro 176, I was talking with him, and he was like, oh shit, you're Mickey? I used to look at your pieces, I was really like looking up to you. Where are you? I'm like, well, I'm still here, I'm still painting. Because he asked me, do you still paint? I was like, what question is that? But he was like, I don't find you on the internet. I was like, yeah, but I'm on the internet. I do have an Instagram. I do have a Facebook. But yes, I don't know how to use it, because I'm kind of a dinosaur.
But we're going to discuss this about like the old days. First, I'm going to introduce the last man here, because Arthur already introduced. Mathieu Tremblin.
Hi.
Oui, il est français.
C'est ça, je suis français.
Oui. Very important information. And you're an artist in urban interventions. And together with David Renaud, you are Le Frère Hipoulin, and doing great stuff. And previously, actually, it was like 2014, you were already in MU.
I was invited in MU for Small Gesture, also curated by Jasper. And in this frame, I did a piece which is remained permanent in a MU space. I'm not going to say where it is, but there is a piece that you can see in the space. And I also did an uncommissioned work in the street and get arrested for it. But luckily, Jasper is a very smart guy, so he succeeded to pass the fine into the production budget. I thank him again for it. And Angelique, sorry, I never told you. He never told you. That was very, very nice. Good memories of Eindhoven.
And you're doing a PhD on the relation of intervention art and internet. But maybe you can briefly say something also about, I asked you something briefly about your career and your urban intervention, you as an artist.
In fact, contrary to you guys, I didn't start graffiti when I was a teenager. Even if I was interested, I was in very small and average city. And this city was also used by, and still used by the French state, Le Mans, to test anything. So in 1995, 1996, the first thing I went through was actually internet. Like I was just beginning high school and get interact directly. So I totally browsed through this new thing to gather image, to discover how I could talk with foreigners, European guys and stuff like this. And when I started art school, I actually started learning coding too. It was the end of the 90s, beginning of 2000. And I got friends that were doing graffiti, and I found out that tagging could be a very good way of apply all the theory, libertarian theories that I read in book during that time like fluxus, art that make life more interesting than art, all that kind of concepts. So I went directly into graffiti while studying art, and I did it during 10 years in an intense manner. And at the same time, I was like starting doing websites and stuff like this. So at some point, experimenting a lot with taggings and with rollers and stuff, I wanted to get up, as Boyce would have said, and decided to create a special project with David Renaud, where we were actually still doing forest graffiti, but not in a traditional way. We're just writing slogans in a public space with small, let's say, small characters sometimes, or small shadows. I didn't put any example of this period. It's still nice, you can access it online, but it was really the period just after Photolog went big, and I wanted to do something else than only letters. I wanted to deal with the local territory, and I wanted to find a way to document it. That wasn't the same that you got on Photolog that time or in the magazines with the very tiny pictures. I wanted it to be more documentary about how the urban life was how the process-based practice that graffiti was intense and interesting in a manner of deciphering urban space. So we made our first website, and we started to only spread our work through our website without having any social account, and did it in a very documentary way and start to connect with Europeans, and then it went bit different. And then the second, maybe the third layer, the second layer was then the blogging with the tag clouds that permit you to browse through an amount of data. And then when the social network and the cell phone took over internet, it totally changed my perspective on the way I was practicing. And I started to use it and do some pieces, so maybe you can show some. So yeah, maybe you make it run, it's small videos. So it changed my manner of viewing the thing, and I started to think on how I could make the internet into the street and the street into internet, and how the interaction that I was having with people outdoor and people online could match. So I made many experimentations. This one is not one of those. It's just like banners, like finding a balance between the citizen practices that I found graffiti to be, and the advertisers that are allowed to impose us like some logos and brands. So I'm just writing Tremblin & Co. Graffiti writing. It's just the hacking stuff that you were speaking before. That's kind of one of the my last statement as a writer. Now I'm really doing other stuff, still using spray cans, still doing some tags, but what I mean is really the last gestures that I did is to advertise about myself that way. And so I was speaking about the code and deciphering. This is one of the, maybe you can put a little bit of sound.
Put the sound off.
Yeah, you should put, yeah, whatever. So it's making a loud noise because it's rolling shutters.
You want this kind of sound?
So it's basically my first access to the coding culture is basic on Commodore 64, like an old computer. And I just made this parallel. I was invited by Evan Ross to paint his studio, rolling shutters. And instead of making letters, I choose to make this computer display, which remind me of the way that graffiti went up every morning saying hello world. I really like the thing, so I start to do this series about coding into real life and how use of a computer are changing our reading of the urban space. So we can move to the next one. So this one is one that went totally viral this last summer. And it's called Tag Clouds. It's a project that is actually based on the Web 2.0 culture that nobody understood when it went in the buzz, because now we are not anymore in the internet of visit, we are in the internet of notification. So what could happen before on the blogs, before the blogs, I will say, when people had their personal website and forum and photolog, you were hanging on the internet and somebody, a picture was popping up and you were trying to discover who was this artist. It was like somehow the same experience of drifting that you could have on the street. But then with this centralization that social media brought, it totally disappeared. So now Tag Clouds, which is this kind of frame where the name of the writers on the blogs were appearing with distinguishable type, but then you click on the name and you got tags or you got letters and stuff, was really something that I experienced for browsing on the internet and using some blogs and 2.0 culture. And so this piece is misinterpreted. Maybe we'll speak about it later, but that's one of those that I did in Eindhoven. And just one thing, I also make it because I'm first a tagger. I really love tags. That's a kind of only thing I find interesting in graffiti. Like I'm really obsessed with it. So for me, it was very important to make a work about tagging that actually raise the attention of this fundamental way of appropriating and practicing urban space that tagging is. So maybe if you want quick video. So also speaking about tagging, this one is about DIY culture in graffiti. Like I never use the corporate marker except few small brands, industrial brands. But here it's Mentos and Kooyk. Plus the ink you put in your markers that you buy for making Tintin, the leather, or those kind of stuff. So it's called Ink Jazer, and I did a lot of different versions. But it's really this idea of DIY culture that is the base of graffiti that I moved in another direction, just for action painting. And maybe, yeah. So put just an abstract. Here it's a project called All City Incrustation. It's dealing about the topic of showing graffiti in art spaces. I was invited in New Art Festival to make a kind of a collective show and do murals inside, which didn't make sense for me. So what I did is I asked them to put a blue screen, paint a blue screen, and then I came with writers, like local writers, artists. Everybody was allowed to write on this wall, and then people were invited to take selfies of themselves in front of this wall, and I was retouching the image of the blue screen. You can move to the next picture in order people understand more. No, not this one, the one with the blue screen, please. Yeah. So people were taking selfies in this show because they come for street art show, so they took a lot of picture and they all want to have the picture. So they were very happy making selfies. Yeah, it's a street art, but outdoor, it's Norway, so graffiti is not allowed. You're not allowed to do it. So I recorded all these street scenes of the wall where graffiti should have been and wasn't, and then put it back on incrustation. You can move to the next picture. And so I'm kind of trolling the imaginary of people through this activation, like they pose in a totally secured and comfort space, and then I brought them their surrounding that is where graffiti is not allowed, and they're very happy to have this kind of image. So it's really also thinking about the fact that the piece has only meaning in an online reception, and the fact that people are sharing and taking pictures, the fact that they appropriate it through documentation, which is, I think, a nice step, and you will some stuff. I have to say some stuff about it. Just a few, just to continue. And so I said that here it was about bringing graffiti online. I also started to pick up some work that are actually online. My daily practice of Twitter is just tweeting some statement about things I could do in urban space, and just started as various gesture for this one. You can move to the next to reproduce my Twitter account after 4 years with a selection of statements that are put in urban space. And then for sure I tweeted, you can put the next picture, I tweeted the idea of bringing your Twitter account into the street. It was very funny. And then people started to repost it, and I think it will be the loop with you, Mickey. So here it's saying my parent in Paris checking their tweets, old school. So I guess we got this kind of loop with
Going from digital
the
to
user-
analog,
yeah,
back to digital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, we're also going to discuss that, going from digital and analog. But maybe start with the first thing when, back in the old days. Maybe because you said, mainly I like text, not so much graffiti, but I like text. And then also, it's like some people think, why text? Where dogs urinate and to show that they were there. What do you say when people say, isn't it the same, but then for you, human beings, doing actually the same thing, urinating or, giving your territory? I'm just asking you because,
It's a question about tag. What is tag?
Yeah.
Is the dog
Yes.
yeah.
If tag is peace, then graffiti peace, shit. That's the thing I replied to the guy saying, oh, you like this beautiful graffiti piece, so if tag is peace, this is shit. So, discussion over. Next question.
Okay, so far the discussion if tagging was the same as urinating. No, but just first with the old days, because as you were saying, there was a lot of difference, and also for you, not knowing, what was happening, what was where, you weren't available to, a lot of places, and but magazines were of great importance. And then,
Yeah, the magazines.
yeah,
But then there were two ways of dealing with the magazines as a writer. Either you would send to each magazine all your photos and then wait for what they would publish, or you would send your one or two photos, or maybe three, of your best selection of the stuff that you wanted to share, to maybe one or two magazines of which you knew that they were like the highest quality magazines. I used to do the latter. Which means that I'm not up in each magazine, in every magazine, but what was going to say about this? Because in the old days, compared to now with the internet, it was really nice also to keep some stuff unpublished. And nowadays, sometimes I get the question like, "Oh, Mickey, can you send some never published stuff?" But that's not possible anymore, because I make a piece like my last piece, and okay, it's a bit in the outskirts of Amsterdam, so it hasn't been seen yet. But if I would do it in the center of town, I'm sure it would be all over the internet really soon already. You cannot keep anything private or unpublished anymore.
okay. So that's also for you something to be kind of nostalgic about.
Yeah, sure. But I don't want to be too nostalgic.
Well, but I just love your point that you actually just said getting up in the magazines, right? Because there are writers, who will email me and say, I want to, be on Vandalog, and there are writers, I'm sure, that email you, Boris, who are saying, I want to be on the Grifters blog, and to just what I was saying earlier, if you could paint in the center of Amsterdam, but unless somebody puts it on the Grifters, I might not see it, because I'm in New York, right? And it's not until you get up on the Grifters and get up on my site or on Juxtapose or Complex that I'm going to see it in New York. And it is so important. It's interesting to hear you say, even in the era of magazines, that was like a goal, right? That was a goal for you.
Yeah,
to get in at least to the big magazines.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to, as a writer, you want to get up. You want
Right.
you want your work to be seen, and I would only actively send my stuff to 2 or 3 magazines. And if I would be published, or my work would be published in other magazines, I would just be grateful and happy and look at me. But yeah, that was one of the goals of why you were trying to make really good pieces also, so you can send it in, or pieces that are on a very difficult spot, or pieces in New York, because that was, I mean, from here, that was like one of those goals, like to go to New York and bomb there. So
And you could actually say that you did it even though you didn't do it, because nobody could actually check it. So that, I don't know if you ever did that, but that's also a good thing of the old days, no? That not everything is visible.
Right now you can make on the internet, you can make Photoshop. It's even better.
Yeah.
It's even better and easier.
And then when it comes to the risk, is there any bad? I mean, you said there's not so much risk of getting caught and whatever. And now you see everything. In your case, you don't mind. You take even off your head, whatever you did. Yeah. You don't.
Look, I think first it's good maybe Miki to make a little point because she has analog career. I'm between the analog and into the digital age. And what is interesting is that back then, when there was no internet, there was not so much information, there was not so much magazines, and getting into the magazines, it was not so easy. And also getting the magazines itself, it was not easy because there was not so many shops. In countries like where I was, there was no graffiti shop. To get a magazine, I had to write a letter to somebody to send me or bring me the magazine if they visit me. So it was exclusive to see a piece. It was precious to have a new magazine, to discover new styles. Today, people have the opportunity to consume a lot of information. You wake up, you open Instagram, you have thousands and thousands of new pieces. You can discover new styles, and this is why also styles are changing really fast. Back in the days, everything was more logical and more slowed down, and people really appreciated how. People actually appreciated everything much more than now with the fast moving, with the instant moving. So this is what changed this is what the digital changed after. So now it's over information and everybody is lost into getting stuff. And for sure, like if you speak about risk it was the same back then. It was the same right now. But the risk depends on what you do. If you send a lot of photos to magazines, depending on the photos you send, you get a risk because you're gonna get noticed not only by the writers and you're gonna get the fame, but you're gonna get also the wrong fame. You're gonna get the authorities behind you, and this is the same on Instagram. But I think with the years, just the level raised. First, people were showing just graffiti, then they started to take the ambience photos, then they started to pose in front of the train, and then they started to pose naked in front of the train. And what will be next, we don't know. Just the bar is raising, and graffiti is attention whoring. People want attention, people want fame, so everybody is trying to do more to top the next, and this is raising the bar. And then we are here today and we see what we saw, and we don't know what will be the next thing, what people will do, because it's also, I say entertainment because it's entertainment. Hey, people are producing high quality digital material, photography, films, videos, and I mean films like full length films made with the crew, they go to illegal places and they shoot beautiful movies. This is entertainment for sure. This is topping up everybody behind. Then the guys, they go inside and they have the professional sound recorder, etc., etc. So for sure, the more the quality and the entertainment, the more the risk. So it's just, I think, it's raising until something.
So maybe I want to respond to that because I didn't continue my graffiti career because I found more interest actually in doing urban intervention. But the fact is, one of the hacking you were speaking about for me regarding graffiti was also based on this way you move in the city. And if there is one profile of hardcore writer getting up with all the trains and the fame and stuff, there is also those profiles of, let's say, urban explorer like Onet, who are trying to reach abandoned space that you cannot find by yourself, and finally working during hours and finding hidden place in order to just put one piece or one tag in a non-accessible place. So not to get visibility, but on contrary, to get a huge experience, extend the process of discovery, which is exactly the opposite of having adrenaline. And so it's not about the risk. What I meant is just also there is this other way of going, which is going totally low and totally discreet and not unpublished, but go away from the visibility area.
How do you know about the story of Honet then?
I know, he's a good storyteller.
You know,
he's good.
You met him and he told you the story of the catacombs, or you saw his photolog online and you saw all the pictures Honet going on
for sure. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think especially for Honet and for the urban explorers, this is the different topic. It's not the topic of security and showing and not showing. This is when we are speaking about the experience and the process. So this is probably one of the most interesting topics that we can discuss tonight, and the viral vandals and everything, because we are focused on that. And this is actually the emotional rapport that graffiti writer has with graffiti itself. I think most of the writers, especially vandals, they don't have so much tight rapport with the visual end product of graffiti than they have with the process, that the experience they get being together, painting, penetrating, exploring. And speaking about urban exploration, actually for me, I have done also urban exploration, and this is graffiti without doing graffiti. It's like you're going there, you're being there. Okay, you make a little tag, you don't do a big piece, because you have to say, hey, I was also here, and rat snitch in the photo log, but at the end it's the same. It's exactly, every step is the same, except that you don't paint. You just go there, and you have a nice dinner, and you listen to music, and everybody do whatever he do, you know. And,
But you still tell the story, right?
Yeah.
You still post the photo on Photolog, you still tell the story, and you still get the fame, you know? So you still get the fame of it, even if you didn't write it in the center of the city, right?
Yeah, for sure, but this is also competitive. The urban explorer, they are looking to each other, who went where, who done what. So it's the same as graffiti.
Yeah, but that's a low version of visibility. That's what I would like to say. It's just like this getting up situation has went so far away that now you're making this kind of snapshot portrait. But on the other end, you could have this book you call Graffiti Without Graffiti. I mean, just accounts of some writers who just post their everyday past and not even the picture of graffiti anymore, because, by the way, you know his signature, the guy. You don't need to see 10 Honnête style, you know, at some point.
We all know people who paint graffiti and they don't post, they don't publish, and they don't send to magazines. There is a lot of discreet writers, but we're just, because we're talking about the publishing and the social media and the internet on the viral vandals. This is why we focus on this. For sure, there is people who keep everything for themselves, and they will get popular or noticed in the analog way, in the natural way of how graffiti writer get fame. Just he will be recognized. They'll say, hey, who is this guy? He destroy everything, and we didn't see him in the magazine. He never give an interview. He's always standing behind, and he's a mystery. There is a lot of mystery guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the line between two visions of graffiti, one is relating it to art, and the other is looking at it as a social practice. And in France, you get huge debate. I still participate on those debates on blogs about the fact that the misreading of the hardcore or old school scene is oftenly based on the fact that what is really interesting is the process. So graffiti should be before anything a social practice. It's not an online social network practice, but it's also based with a community. So for sure you cannot publish everything online if you want, but the fact is you're still addressing yourself to a lot of people, and those people are the people around you. So despite the fact that you want to escape to publication of visibility, the story is still running.
Yeah. At least the end product is running, even if you're not documenting the practice of graffiti, the action, the ambience, the end product is there, and there is the kids with the phones everywhere, the spotters. They're taking pictures, sometimes ugly pictures, sometimes nice pictures. They publish them online, and they don't respect the privacy of the artist and his decision. But at the end of the day, you do something in public space, you have to know that if you do it in the public space, it's for the public, and what the public do today. Click, click, click. This is what they do. So
so we moved now from the old days to internet. But do you all remember when actually internet was there? Yeah, I'm going ahead of that. Doesn't really matter. But actually, the first, when internet was there, what for you like the mind-blowing first things were that the new opportunities that were there? Because of course you could see other artists in other places in the world. Or do you?
I was in a small town called Rennes in Britain, and the fact is we were just hanging with my buddies in city, making tags, and the most fun was always to meet other crew of writers doing the same. It was really, really, really crazy, because like we only knew each other through names, and it's not about the yard where you're gonna meet the guy painting. We weren't doing that, so it was just this thing of, oh, look at this guy, he's braving strange. Look how he walk. Oh, I hear a sound of the smell of the can and that thing. And it was really, really the funny thing, because it's really, the city is yours, because suddenly there are all other people doing the same thing, and you're not obligated to, you can meet the guy and spend the night together, introduce him to a party. And yeah, that was the funny part, like, without being connected, just have to make connection by your own means, talks to each other.
And you also have some examples of stuff that you really liked about, like the early days and actually all the possibilities. Right now, you see the hashtag graffiti.
Yeah. This was Mobster, who's in the Viral Vandals show, and when I saw this piece, I thought it was the funniest thing, right? And I saw this in person, but it's not really intended to be seen in person, right? Clearly, this, like your tag clouds, right, or like your Hello World. It's like maybe you can see that in person, but like it's almost more effective to see it online, and more people are going to see it online. And I'm going to put hashtag graffiti when I post it to Flickr and Instagram. And then when you search graffiti on Flickr or Instagram, you're going to see that image, right? And that's where it's really meant to be discovered. And to your question of like pre-internet, I got into street art and graffiti right when the transition was happening, right when Flickr was becoming a big thing, and so I never had a pre-internet really experience of it as a real fan, other than just walking down the street and seeing a tag, right? And so as I was trying to figure out what the hell am I supposed, internet was a huge lifesaver for me, because I was like, I'm not a writer, I'm not a talented artist, I can't paint for shit. How do I participate in this culture? And I'm, 16, 17 years old, whatever it was. How do I participate in this culture? And I was living in London, and I was like, oh, I could take photos and start posting them online. And immediately, artists were like, oh, thanks for taking a picture of my work. I didn't have to start a zine even. Not that was particularly hard, but like if I'd started a zine, I wouldn't have known who to distribute it to, because I didn't know anybody, right? But by posting to Flickr and using the tags on Flickr, and starting to see people, as you say, sometimes you just walk down the street and you see someone else with a camera and you go, oh, you're that guy on Flickr, I'm that guy on Flickr, okay. So the internet was my way into the culture as somebody who, otherwise, I didn't have any friends who were writers, didn't have any friends who were street artists. It was all through that I was able to get involved at all, really.
And Jasper was showing slowly like your mural. There's also like a possibility that you can actually, by making pictures and then showing the whole story of a mural, maybe you can go through and tell something about it. Jasper?
I thought.
Yeah?
What do I find interesting of this? Like this, I like this.
No,
piece.
this is like one of the opportunities that actually within internet.
Yeah, so
you guys were going to say some opportunities.
You couldn't have done this before the internet.
Yeah, true. But like for Mobster, like for the Viral Vandals show, we're trying to do a different kind of piece. But he tried to make a piece which was also directly on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So he posted a white wall on Instagram, and people responded on it like, "Hey, shit, what's going to happen?" Mobster's posting a white wall, and then he posted some comments. He spray painted some comments of the people on Instagram on the wall. But the way he works, he gets to decide if the work is finished and if he posts it online. So you can walk past this and see maybe this sentence, or you can see this one and don't even notice that there's something going on, So he kind of got like the control of it. And with the Instagram piece, he didn't have the control, because he needed to post it online immediately, and kind of like really fucked with him, It was like, shit, I'm like, this is kind of tough, Like it's directly into the face. So the next white wall he posted, immediately everybody was of course commenting like, yeah, I'm going to be on the wall, yeah, it's going. And then he didn't. Yeah, shit, I have to think of the next step. And this is the way he works. And by only posting it online when it's finished, he keeps the control, And I like it, This is something you can only if you know it and you pass by this wall and you take pictures by yourself, you can be the owner of the piece. But I think I don't think you can.
Can we see more slides from that?
The grey one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a red one, and there's there's loads of stuff that he did. You also had an example of Banksy, RJ.
Oh yeah.
When he was in Mali. You know,
Yeah.
there's all these opportunities. This one, maybe you can still sell something about this.
Sure.
One.
So this was Banksy in Mali, in Africa, and he painted this piece, and clearly, you know, and it's funny. So I looked at this piece, and I said, clearly this piece was painted for the internet, because it's this joke about, and this was before Peaches Geldof passed away, obviously. It was this joke about Peaches Geldof, who, daughter of Bob Geldof, the guy who did Live Aid, Live 8, all that, and she was this British socialite in the tabloids. And so, you know, he does this joke about Peaches and sort of her family's fundraising philanthropy history, and how she's like this stupid socialite spending all this money at clubs. And he goes back, and so I emailed his PR people about this when I was trying to do a story about this piece. And I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, can I like use this in this piece I'm writing? And they responded back with a quote from Banksy, which I wasn't expecting. So the backstory that I got that only came out much later was, he said, well, I painted that piece, took the photo, went and had lunch, had a coffee, and then sort of thought, you know, this doesn't really work, because, you know, nobody in Mali is going to get it, this Peaches joke, because they don't read the British tabloids, which was my thought exactly as well. I was like, he goes, it's kind of rude, right? That I just go and paint their wall for a joke for the Brits when I come back home. It's kind of rude. And so he goes back the next day and paints a heart instead of Peaches. And then it just becomes a guy who's like, you know, a little guy with like, I want some money, and it's a heart, and give me money, right? And then he asks his fixer, like, well, what do you think? Like, do you think people like it better now? And the fixer goes, oh, everybody liked it better way better before, when they actually thought it meant something. You know, whether they got the joke or not, they figured out, oh, begging for some white girl who looks kind of fancy, okay, I get it. You know, whether they thought it was Paris Hilton or Peaches Geldof, or they didn't know, okay, here's this, whatever. And now they're like, it's not a joke, now it's just a heart, who cares? So I would say this is like a piece that was for the internet. Banksy thought the same thing. Turns out they actually liked it there. But, you know, this was a piece that he painted for the internet, realized it as such, and then was like, maybe I shouldn't have just painted this piece for the internet.
Is there, because we're also going to go to other opportunities, is there any questions actually so far from the audience about anything? You? No?
No question.
No question. Okay, we go further, because you know, we have like way more examples. Jasper, we can go to further on, because we were talking about more opportunities. One of the things actually, well, it's like you were talking about badass. I actually, Fox Tweet, you already said. Jeff Greenspan, also Palin's Facebook page. Katsu, you already told about.
Yeah,
Katsu also, like, what you can also do is maybe you can show Katsu where he's actually in a museum, because this.
Excuse me, sir. Hey, excuse me.
This is things that can be done that's not really there, but you can. It's only on the internet, and you can also play it there. And how do you see it? Can you elaborate a bit more on going viral and hacking?
Yeah,
you know,
well,
hacking
so everyone heard about that, right? When Katsu destroyed a Picasso at MoMA and destroyed this multi-million-dollar piece of art, right? It was big headlines, New York Times. No, I'm kidding. It didn't happen. That was totally just done in After Effects. So that was him just playing around with special effects. He didn't actually, obviously, destroy a fucking Picasso painting in broad daylight in the middle of this museum, right? But if you read the comments on that video, so many people are like, "Oh my God, you went too far this time, man! Like, this is crazy. What are you doing? Picasso's brilliant. You're such an asshole." And then there's debate. It's like, he did it. No, he didn't do it. Are you an idiot? Yes, he did. Look at it in the video. And then he goes, well, you would have read about it in the New York Times if he did it, right? No, he did it. But of course he didn't. And so he totally went viral, got tens of thousands of views for a tag he didn't even make, right? That he made, you know, just one afternoon, yeah, which is a very good make. And he just, you know, did it in one afternoon on his laptop, right? And so that I find that so fascinating, because that's that example of using the global track, right? Not using a subway car or a wall, but knowing that YouTube is this, and that social media is going to be this way more effective medium to spread his message.
Yeah. Also, because there was also a lot of things, a lot to do about the fact that he was actually spraying on a homeless person. But then also, I mean, it could be not true, but it could also be that it was not really a homeless person
Exactly,
or whatever.
yeah.
But then it's more about to provocate or to, yeah. That's where the whole thing.
I mean, I'm curious. That's more your alley, right? It's like these experiments in the nude, like going and painting the subway naked and whatever. And
for different people is different. Different artists, some people are really tagging homeless people. I know people who really tag homeless people, and it's not for putting it online and to make a provocation to get attention or comments or like or just activity just to go to top the news. But I think this what we saw. It's a clear. It's just a test, a social experiment. This type of artwork. But the thing is, actually, what is interesting is all this that we discuss is how this new media, the social media, gives the opportunity the artists to deliver new message. And they can cheat, they can make experiment, they can express themselves, they can do whatever thanks to the social media. But this content is created only for the social media. This content may not exist in the real life.
But you can go a bit further, because there's this video, Hyper Reality, and this is actually a video made of how the future could look like. Maybe, for instance, you're in Google Glass. Maybe we can have a brief look at
Bastante. Apúrate si quieres una buena calificación.
Voy lo más rápido que puedo.
¿Has pensado en correr? Es saludable y eficiente.
Seguro que no hay más trabajos disponibles. Yo estudié para ser profesora y estoy haciendo mercados.
Y además puedes quedarte con los puntos de fidelización. Eres una monkey afortunada. Tienes que confiar en la aplicación. ¿Te sientes inspirada? Gracias. Chao.
¿Quién soy yo? No, eso no es lo que quiero decir. ¿Para dónde voy? No. Puedo volver a empezar. Olvídalo.
Estoy presente ahora. Me amo. Estoy libre de mi ira. Estoy libre de mi tristeza. El amor es mi experiencia.
Adiós.
Hola, me llamo María. Well, this goes on. It's more actually to show that in this world where, people are actually thinking of what the future is going to look like. But I wanted to know how do you look at it, at the opportunities to do either, interventions or graffiti or tags or whatever, or you singing somewhere within this new reality that we're heading to, or virtual stuff. What do you see as the opportunities or new ways or, future... the future.
Yeah.
So much coming out of you today.
For me, the new opportunities is how you manage to disconnect in some way. So it's not about augmenting and adding content to the content. It's more how you try to subtract content. So seeing this virtual reality and stuff, for me, except the real hacking of a program, if you speak in visual terms, I will say that what could be interesting will be what is outside of the picture, revealing what is behind, what is hidden, like vandalism, basically. Where you got this beautiful furniture for a bus stop, and then somebody is throwing rocks on it, and it's not advertising anymore. It's broken glass everywhere. And it's like some kind of shapes that haven't been designed by somebody. It's just like the presence of the body against the architecture, against the structure, against the power. So for me, it will be that kind of thing. I think it's not about adding more content and spamming virtual reality. It's more about how you will try to remove some content in order to produce a meaning. or even just noise, visual noise. It will be about visual noise.
You agree on that because you also had like a lot of examples of
Yeah, sure. I mean, so Katsu being one example, right? The Katsu Google homepage thing. Obviously, that when we go into augmented reality, I'm sure the next thing Katsu will say is, "I'm going to do something in AR," right? And I think we have to be thinking about that as artists and art people and figuring out, okay, what is that going to look like? The hyper reality video, great example, where that's an overwhelming situation. And if you look at some of those things that were going on in that video, it was a lot of ads, right? It was ads. And so I think a few of us here are probably friendly with Jordan Seiler. I know you were just hanging out with him. He's an anti-advertising activist in the States, in New York. And Jordan has actually done experiments in augmented reality to your point about removal. And so what he's trying to figure out is, okay, we're all going to be wearing Google Glass in 10 years, have this hyper reality thing, and people are going to be feeding us ads because that's how you're going to get a subsidized Google Glass, right? Because you can either pay $500 and get the Google Glass, or you can get it for $100 and know that you're going to have advertising, right? I think that's a fair to be expected model for that product. And so Jordan says, well, we need to, as artists, come up with programs that will also be in that augmented reality space so that when you can choose between, I'll either have a lower monthly subscription to my Google Glass if I take ads, or I can use this, I pay maybe a bit more, but I use the art app in my phone, then I could walk around the street, and when I see a building, like three-dimensional animated art will pop out and move around for me, right? Which is way more fun.
That's a legal thing. Well, I would think of Katsu going, when you walk past the Trump Tower, it would be Katsu on it. I mean, I would really think that's cool, but in an illegal way, and not in a legal way that you propose now.
Well, right. So Jordan is proposing this legal way of doing it, and maybe there is a way to hack it too.
So I will right directly from the discussion with Jordan. I think it's not about what is legal or illegal, because it's a way to simplify a manner to look at graffiti. Maybe it's related to the fact that in Dutch country graffiti is totally not allowed, but in France I get arrested a lot of time and never had trouble. I wasn't doing hardcore train writing, but what I mean is just you always can in a social way find a way to get out of this trap. For me, it's more about the vicious way the communication and the administration are going to use those tools in order to not permit us to do whatever we want to do on here. And what is funny, Jordan Seller was asked by an advertising company which is doing these billboards with LED that are changing of advertising all the time and stuff. And so he was contacted by them, and he refused to go for it at the beginning. And finally he met them, and the guy said, "Hey man, I'm a big fan of your work." He was working for JCDecaux. And he said, "I give you a white card. You can do whatever you want. What will you do? What will you do if I give you a white card?" And Jordan said, "Yeah, I will take the 10 minutes of your advertising each hour, and during this hour everybody will be able to send whatever visual you want on this advertising billboard." And the guy was, "Wow, this is so awesome. We are never going to do that." That's it. Yeah. The thing is not about legal, illegal, hacking and stuff. That's the way you force people not to do what they like. The thing is how you prevent them to be able to do anything. It's more subtle, it's more vicious, I think, in the society. Like in France with the trial of the writers, RATP using the accountability in order to charge the writer, where actually if they were supposed to pay the cleaning cost, it wouldn't be that big case. It's how they trick on a administrative, legislative, communication way. It's not about actually the content or the legitimacy of the visual.
I know, but as you were saying about paying for, seeing an artist view, that's something different than doing, a tag or a bombing, and then, not even if it's illegal, but that's like a free artistic way. And in the other way, it's almost like you you do something for people that pay for. It's like different from.
Oh yeah, and it would be great. Maybe the answer is that the city says, say, the city of New York is going to have a history app, right, in their Google Glass, because they will, right, and they'll say, well, we'll do a New York City Historical Society. We'll do a free app on your phone, whatever, and maybe they'll do a free art app, and maybe you would be able to opt out of the ads. But I don't think we'll be. Jordan's point, and I agree with him on this, is we won't be able to opt out of the ads. Certainly not without paying for them, unless we're saying, like, from today, hey, whenever Google Glass happens, we need to be able to opt out of the advertising and put art in there. And then there could be a grifters app that as you walk through the city, that you see grifters pieces popping up everywhere. There's a Katsu app, there's a Mickey LaRock app, where as I walk through Amsterdam, I see every spot you've ever had a tag, you could like put a tag back up, which would be amazing, right? And maybe that's a way, there's a way to do that for free, or maybe you have to pay for it, or maybe, to your point, somebody hacks into the advertising system and just puts in their work. It probably wouldn't last very long, but it will happen.
Hacking feels more like the spirit, the spirit of the old. Yeah,
absolutely. And maybe some people will hack it, and people have hacked digital billboards before. So why wouldn't they hack the augmented reality, whether it's advertising or the historical New York or what, you know, or do an Easter egg like the Simcopter, you know,
or maybe it won't happen because the thing will be a deal at a political level. And the fact is we have to take awareness on our use of the internet and the monopoly of social media, like big gamers, because on one day, if they decide, for example, to say that graffiti is not allowed on Instagram because of some reason, suddenly it's gonna just be totally out of Instagram with just clicking one button. So we have really to address the issues of on a political level of this management of data, and then kind of we are quitting this question with hacking and graffiti, because then it's more you as a human being, how you behave in urban space. Is graffiti some freedom you give to yourself, or is it something you try to do against people, against authority? And it's always this way, in way back, how you feel about being constructive or destructive. I think for me, graffiti has always been constructive. I mean, it's adding something. It's not destroying anything. Yeah. So I think it could be a positive way, but I don't think the writers are ready now to reach a level of political awareness. I see most of the writers I meet are more nihilist or libertarians, so they are not going to that point Jordan Taylor is saying. There are few, I think there are few, but most of the writers are not so aware of those questions.
No. And also not into making statements, and no. And you, if you hear like, oh yeah, maybe you can see stuff that you made in the past or whatever, would you actually be into that, or you think, no, I like it to be, as you said, in the old days, you know, things were maybe more appreciated. In a way, we go back to like, you know, old, more analog stuff. We are now into cassettes and stuff like that. Maybe, you know, is there something that we reappreciate the old style?
Well, I would definitely give it a try, but it's so far the whole online world is something that I do not feel all the way into I said, into my fingertips. So if there would be somebody that say like, hey Mick, let's go sit down and let's do this, I'll be like, yeah, sure, and I'll bring the content and he can develop the whole online thing. But it will take a while, you know. I'm adapting. I'm just a very slow adapter to this whole online virtual viral funnel thing.
But I mean, do you suffer, or is it okay with you?
No, not at all. I'm
You're cool being analog and being here.
No. I'm okay with what I'm doing, and I know that. Well, I have to adapt a little bit more, which I'm doing as a matter of fact. The new website is going to be online soon, and it's going to be like all like 2017 proof. But yeah, no, it's a different world, and yeah.
Right. You're slowly getting there. Is there any questions from the audience? But yeah, I just come quickly to you with the microphone. Yeah.
The question is for Mickey. I want to ask, because you say you're scared of the internet, or people were scared of the internet back in the day. How was it for you when you did the movie Bomb It? For you?
Well, that's a really nice question. Thank you, because that was the counter. That was actually the counterpoint that me and Remco Koopman, Skage, we actually sat down together because we were invited or approached by the director of the movie, John Rice, and we sat down and we were like really like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? Because we were undercover before and always used to sending our pictures to a magazine and stay undercover like that. But now we were asked to be in a movie and show our faces and show our work. But we, after a whole debate with the two of us, we kind of agreed that if we wanted to become artists, and we knew we could not just keep on writing the way we used to, that we were used to, and stay undercover. I mean, we're growing older, and he finished art college. I was doing a couple of years of art college too, and I knew that I wanted to develop as an artist. I cannot just stay and write Mickey all the time everywhere where I go. I just wanted to, like as you see, develop my lines and abstract works and other works as well. So we just like shook each other's hands, say like, okay, man, here we go. We go down the drain now, and we agreed with John Rice coming to Holland and do the filming with us. But it was very, very scary because we knew at one point we would walk around in a different city and have guys like, oh man, are you making? I've seen you in that movie. And that actually happened, of course, and I got a lot of comments on it, but basically only positive comments. And in the end, it did help. It was one of the things that helped me grow as an artist. So I'm grateful for that, but ooh, it was scary decision.
Any other questions before we close off from the audience? No? And otherwise you can do it live. Yes, Boris, then the last question is, where does graffiti actually live? And then you answer.
And my phone is there. So
no, Boris! Oh, no.
There you go.
So where does graffiti actually live, Boris? Tell me.
This is where graffiti is living right now. This is where graffiti is living right now. Repeat.
And where you going to be living?
No.
No? Future plans? Anything?
No.
You're not going to tell us?
It's a surprise.
I want to thank you all for being here, and of course, if you have any further questions, ask any of them. Also, I'd like to thank Jasper for doing everything. As I said, there is a book actually that comes with the exhibit. Sorry for damage done, and it's actually produced by Jasper. You can get it here, and you can also have it signed. And if you have a ticket now, you can still go to the expo, which is still the 2nd of July in Mu. And now the bar is open, and let's go for a drink. Thank you very much, all of you.
Okay. Let's make a collective picture. Come on. Yeah, get in here, but careful of the glass.
Don't speak so loud because everybody will hear.
Yeah.
I hate the internet.
The internet.